Creatives really struggle to get a response from cold prospects. And even when they do get a response, they often find it difficult to get a sales conversation going. I worked with a photographer who went on holiday for 2 weeks, and when she got back, her calendar was filled with calls with her ideal clients. And it's using the exact strategy that I'm about to run through with you. When most people use LinkedIn, they are thinking about what they can get from that interaction. But in order to get more clients, you have to give more, not get more. When I'm reaching out to strangers, these are the 5 key elements that must be included in that message or in that communication. Element number 1 is I'm about to sit down and record a video for the Futures YouTube channel, which is going to be coming out in a few months, all about how to find and attract your ideal clients on LinkedIn, specifically about what to say when you're messaging people and how to get a response from messaging people. So I thought I would record a quick podcast episode to take you a little bit behind the scenes of this and share some of this content with you in a slightly different format and in a way that I hope will help you to really nail some of these conversations. Because what I see on LinkedIn from having used it for the past 10 years almost now is that creatives really struggle to get a response from cold prospects. And even when they do get a response, they often find it difficult to get a sales conversation going. And it's usually just a polite reply. And we're all very concerned with being too salesy or too spammy or sort of burning through our contacts. And so what I want to talk about today is a message structure that I've been using myself, but also my clients have been using. People like Kai, who runs a video production agency, who won Bentley as a client directly using this framework, or David, who runs an audio production studio, who managed to get a meeting with someone quite high up in Paramount. So these are people that I've worked with personally, small creative studios that are using this strategy to actually book meetings with people and win clients on LinkedIn and a little bit via email as well, kind of combining both of those things. This doesn't take loads of thinking. That's the thing I love about this framework, is it doesn't take hours and hours to craft one message. And it's also a framework that once you get the hang of it, you can actually pass it to someone else. So one of our clients that we work with, they have a project manager in their team doing their outreach every single week on LinkedIn, connecting with people, starting conversations. And the founder literally just gets calls booked into their calendar. And this isn't the only example. I worked with a photographer who went on holiday for 2 weeks. And when she got back, her calendar was filled with calls with her ideal clients. And it's using the exact strategy that I'm about to run through with you. So before we get into the kind of tactics and the tools around this, I mean, obviously the tool is LinkedIn, but the way do we message people? Do we comment? Like, what do we do? I just want to talk about some high level principles that I think a lot of people miss. And without these principles, the things that I'm going to talk about in terms of the message framework doesn't really make sense, or it won't work for you. So there's 3 key principles. The first key principle is the idea of give versus get. Now, when most people use LinkedIn and when most people use this strategy, or should I say they use a DM or a cold outreach strategy, they are thinking about what they can get from that interaction in the back of their mind, at least. And I know I've been there. It's like, how do I get more clients? And so when they approach the prospecting process, they are very much in the mindset of getting something rather than giving something. And so this is a very fundamental mistake, and it's actually quite counterintuitive, because obviously you're doing this because you want to get more clients. But in order to get more clients, you have to give more, not get more. And this helps for a few different reasons. It helps because it allows you to feel less salesy about the process, but it also helps in the sense that it puts you into that mode of giving and creating, which is a kind of abundance mode rather than a scarcity mode. When we're in get mode, we're very much in a scarcity mode, like what resources can I get? When we're in a give mode, we're very much in this kind of creator abundance mode. And this is the mode that allows you to enroll clients. This is the mode that will get you responses from your ideal clients. So the first big idea or the first key principle is give versus get. Always go into an interaction asking yourself what I can give to this person, not what I can get from this person. The second key principle when we're talking specifically about LinkedIn is you want to message people like a millennial. What I mean by that is I often see people on LinkedIn, and I get these messages myself. They are paragraphs long. People try to write emails but use LinkedIn, and they're like these big introductions, who we've helped, what we can do for you, all of these things. And as soon as somebody sees that message, the likelihood of them reading it is very low because it's just too much information. It's just overwhelming for people. Okay. So your priority when you're messaging people on LinkedIn is to start a conversation. So the reason I say millennials is because whenever I get a text message from my younger cousins or something like that, they always send what they could have said in one message in about five, right? So they might just ask a quick question, then you reply to that, and then they say something else. And it's very kind of backwards and forwards. And that's the type of conversation that we want to be trying to have on LinkedIn. We don't want to be bombarding people with these long messages. So that's principle number 2. The third thing is don't fear the follow-up. When I was building my coaching business in the early days, I genuinely got to my first 6 figures in revenue using purely outreach and partnerships. So I'll give you a tangible example. I would reach out to a co-working space and I would say, hey, I'm a business coach. I coach creatives and freelancers. I think there might be an opportunity for us to collaborate. Would you be interested in me coming into your co-working space and delivering a workshop that's usually a thing that my clients pay for free in exchange for you helping me to promote this to your users? And I would just reach out. I didn't know, I might have known 1 or 2 people that ran a co-working space, but I used to do this nationwide. And I used to go around and run these workshops every single week. And that was how I got in front of people. And that was how I got clients. And if for any reason we didn't have enough people registered, I would actually go and find freelancers, small creative studios online in that city. And I would reach out to them and I would connect with them on LinkedIn. I would send them emails. If there was a number on their website, I would just pick up the phone. It was pretty full on hustle. But a lot of the time, I would actually get a response from somebody, a positive response from somebody after the 3rd or 4th follow-up. Now, a lot of people really hate the idea of follow-up because in their minds, the story is, well, if this person was interested, they would have replied. And 9 times out of 10, that just isn't true. I would often get an apology on the 3rd or 4th follow-up that just said, hey, I missed this. It landed in my spam. I was on holiday. I was on a shoot, yada, yada. And it ended up this person was like, actually, this workshop that you're running sounds really interesting. Tell me more about it. And they would come. And sometimes those people would even go on to become clients and we'd help them grow their business and we'd have these amazing results. And I try and focus on that fact. It's like if I hadn't sent that follow-up email, we never would have been able to help this person. And it's very, very important to have that kind of mindset when you're following up with people. Think about it for yourself. You've probably got messages from friends. You've probably got messages from colleagues, coworkers, maybe even clients that you just think, oh, I'll get around to replying to that next week or tomorrow, or you've just missed it because it's gone in your spam, or you thought you replied or you didn't, or you're just busy. There's 1,000,001 different reasons why you haven't replied to that message. So don't always assume that people aren't interested just because they haven't replied. I operate under the premise that somebody is interested until they tell me otherwise. So until I get a no, then they're interested. So personally for me, that mindset, that belief, that way of operating has generated tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of business for myself and for my clients. In fact, the example I used earlier with Kai, who, by the way, if you go back down the list of this podcast, if you search for Kai Cheng in this podcast, you can listen to the whole interview. But I think he said he followed up 7 or 8 times with Bentley before he got them as a client. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, I don't want to be that desperate. I don't want to be that pushy. I don't want to be that salesy, yada, yada, yada. But most of the time, what that indicates to me is that we're more concerned with people's opinion of us than we are about actually helping people, about actually delivering value, about actually growing our business. And if that's the case, then we're always going to come up against these obstacles in various aspects of our business, whether it's putting content out there, whether it's partnering with people, whether it's asking for the sale. Business, in my experience, is about having a series of uncomfortable conversations. And the better you can get with being uncomfortable, the faster your business will grow, the more impact you will have for your clients, and ultimately the more money you will make. So principle number 3 is do not fear the follow-up. Follow up with people, assume they are interested until they tell you otherwise. So let's get down into the strategy side. Now, every message that you send, you should keep in mind these 5 elements. And this is the structure that I use when I'm reaching out to anyone, whether it's a potential partner, whether I want to get on someone's podcast, whether I want someone on my podcast. When I'm reaching out to strangers, these are the 5 key elements that must be included in that message or in that communication in some way. So I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll explain each one. Element number 1 is a reason. Why are you reaching out? Element number 2 is some kind of genuine compliment. Element number 3 is what we call an anchor, which is kind of something you have in common. Element number 4 is some kind of value, i.e., what's in it for them. And element number 5 is an ask. What specifically do you want them to do? So let's talk through each one of these in a bit more detail. Now, there was a study, which if I can find it, I will link to in the show notes, that demonstrated people that have a reason for something or give a reason for something are twice as likely to have that request accepted than somebody who does not have a reason. And one of the examples they used in this study is somebody cut into a line, right? And they said, hey, can I cut into this line? Now, the person that said, hey, can I cut into this line because, and gave a reason, was twice as likely to be accepted by that person as somebody that didn't have a reason. Now, that might sound obvious, and they actually found that the reason didn't actually matter. So often just giving someone a reason why you're reaching out can be one of the most powerful things to do. It also disarms people a little bit. It makes them feel like, oh, I know why this person is reaching out to me, rather than leaving them wondering, what does this person want? And I think we've all had those messages, right? We've all had the messages where we're like, what's this person trying to get from me? So if you say, hey, I'm reaching out because, and you give a reason, then that's going to make people feel much more comfortable. They know where you stand. And what I will say is this reason doesn't always have to be a pitch. Sometimes the reason can be, I'm reaching out because I saw some content you posted last week and I really liked this specific thing about it. And this comes on to the next point, which is a compliment. So what's great about these 5 elements is they kind of flow into each other. And when you get really good at this, what you'll find is there's actually a sentence that you can create which encompasses all of these 5 elements. And the more you practice it, the easier this gets. And I'll give you some examples in a minute. So giving a reason. The second thing is a compliment, and it has to sort of meet 2 criteria. The first criteria it has to meet is it has to be specific. Just, I love your work is okay, but I love the work you did with so-and-so is way better. The other thing is try and make it as genuine as possible, because people are going to feel that and they're going to sense that. So giving someone a compliment, like everybody loves a compliment, right? I don't think there are many people that just hate compliments, and they hate it when someone says, your work's amazing, I love what you do, etc. So that's the second thing. The third thing is what we call an anchor. Now, anchors are really powerful. And you will have experienced this in your own life. Have you ever been on holiday and you've met somebody else who is from the same city as you, or they support the same football team as you, or they grew up in the same town or were born in the same town as you? All of a sudden, you feel this affinity with this person. And the reason is because you feel like you have that thing in common, and you feel like in some way you are naturally connected by that thing. And that's what I call an anchor. So the more you can anchor in conversations, the easier it's going to be for you to build rapport and establish trust with this person. I've actually got something called the anchor cheat sheet, which I'll run you through in a second. But anchors on LinkedIn are actually quite easy because you can find so much information about people. So we want to create some kind of anchor. The fourth element is value. And this is why I said about giving, not just getting. It's really important that we think, what could we give this person without any kind of expectation or without expecting anything in return? So the value piece is really around what's in it for them. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be, hey, I'm going to come and audit your website and do all these amazing things. Sometimes I get these messages from people. I feel bad because they've gone through and they've audited my website and they've done all these different things. And, I don't really need it. I'm not struggling with the thing that they think I'm struggling with right now. So it's kind of a waste of time and energy on their part. It could be something as simple as, hey, is there anybody in my network that I could introduce you to? Or, hey, we've got this thing that I think you might find valuable. It doesn't have to be crazy. But obviously, the more valuable it is, or the more valuable it's perceived to be, the higher chance you have of that person responding. And then the final thing is an ask. What do you want them to do specifically? So if you're trying to get people to connect with you on LinkedIn, that's obvious, right? Please connect with me. If you are trying to book a call, ask for a call. If you just want a response from them, ask a question. Make something so that it's an open loop. I see way too often people on LinkedIn saying all this stuff, hey, we do this and blah, 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 and we can help you with that. But there's no actual ask at the end of it. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to reply to this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Like, what is the next step that you want me to take? The other important thing about the ask is make one ask. I got a message on LinkedIn the other day and it had 3 separate questions. And so I think to myself, which one of these would you like me to answer first? Which one of these do you actually want to know the answer to? And this really comes down to the idea that every interaction is a transaction. It's a transaction of energy. It's a transaction of time. It takes brain power. It takes physical effort to type on my keyboard to send a response to you. So make it easy. The more difficult that you make it for me to respond to a message, the harder it's going to be, the less likely I am to respond to it if it's going to be too long, right? So make it as easy as possible to remove those barriers to entry. So they're the 5 key elements. I'll give you some examples in a minute. Reason, why are you reaching out? Compliment, what do you love about me, my work, or what I do? Anchor, what do we have in common? Value, what's in it for me? Ask, what do you want me to do specifically? Now, what I will say is you don't have to nail all of these things in one message. You can have the interaction and start to weave these things in based on the conversation. I even try and keep these things in my head when I'm at networking events and I'm having a conversation with someone. So I'll often, compliment them on something. Could be something they're wearing, could be something I've noticed about them, could be something I know about them. I'm trying to find something in common. I'm trying to find ways to demonstrate value to them or give value to them. And then if appropriate, I ask them to do something. So it's always give before ask. We're doing all of these 5 elements and ask is the last one. So I mentioned that I would talk a little bit about an anchor cheat sheet. And so there's some really obvious ones on LinkedIn and there's some less obvious ones. And this isn't an extensive list. So there's probably a bunch of things that you can find yourself. And there's also a bunch of things that will only apply to you. So you might find through somebody's content that there's something that you really like or a common interest that you have. And that's absolutely fine. You can use that. But I'll just run through and give you some examples. And I'm going to start with some sort of weaker anchors, and I'm going to build through to some slightly stronger anchors. So a really obvious, easy one is you went to the same school or university. And so one of the things I love about LinkedIn is it has this incredible and really powerful search features. So you can actually go to a school or a university page that you went to, and you can see the people who have liked that page or that are part of that group or have said that they studied there, and you can actually filter them, and you can go through and filter those people by the kind of target audience that you're trying to approach. And so could be really simple. It's just reaching out saying, hey, I wanted to reach out because I saw that you also went to so-and-so and you work in this industry. Okay, now I've got a reason, and now I've got an anchor. You could throw in a compliment. It's amazing what you've done since you've left so-and-so, right? So a school is a good one. Another really easy one is an event. So there's lots of events listed on LinkedIn. And so if you're also attending the same event as somebody, you could go and look at the list of attendees on that event. You could scroll through them. You could look at someone, oh, they seem interesting. I'd love to connect with them. Hey, Joe, I noticed you're also going to this marketing event. Would love to connect with you and swap notes. Could be as simple as that, right? Doesn't have to be super complicated, but the more you can use anchors, the easier it is. Another one is mutual connections. The one thing I love about LinkedIn is that it has the 6 degree of separation rule nailed down. And it's amazing who you can see through different contacts. So it could be like, hey, I noticed that you're also connected with so-and-so. This is also similar, brings me on to my next one, which is kind of influencers or thought leaders. If people are commenting a lot on particular thought leaders' content, you could just connect with them and say, hey, I noticed that you're also a fan of Matt Essam. Isn't he awesome? Isn't his content great? You can connect with people over that and say, I've noticed that you've been interacting with it. What do you think about this? I'd love to connect and swap notes, whatever it is, right? The other really obvious and easy one is content. So now I know not everybody creates content on LinkedIn, but if you connect with someone and you say, hey, I really like that post that you did about so-and-so, and find something in that you have some experience with. So let's say that your target audience is wellness entrepreneurs and they posted about some kind of retreat. Hey, I love that post you did about the retreat, specifically the part about the breathwork session. I've just started experimenting with breathwork myself. I'm curious, what type of breathwork has been most effective for you? Again, in that example, I know you're not demonstrating value up front and you're not necessarily giving a clear ask, although that question is an ask. But I want to be really clear that on LinkedIn, coming back to my second key principle that I talked about at the start, message like a millennial, you don't have to try and cram all of these 5 elements into one message. You can start with the reason, the compliment, and the anchor. And then once you have a conversation, you can bring in some value and you can bring in an ask. And that's often how I do it, because it's much easier once you know someone, once you know some of their challenges or their goals or something they've told you about their business, it's much easier to pull out some value. Oh, interesting. We're talking about breathwork sessions or mindfulness. Hey, check out this case study that I did for this person that might be valuable for you. Or, do you have any content on that you put out on breathwork at the moment? Oh, why is that? Would it be useful for you if I sent you my content creation guide? It's much, much easier to dig out some kind of value once you're in that flow and in that conversation. So that's content. And the last one is pretty simple. It's just projects, anything that they've worked on or anything's in their sort of featured section. The biggest message that I kind of want to leave you with here is giving value first is one of the most underrated strategies when it comes to direct outreach on LinkedIn. And the easier you can make it for people to engage with you, the more success you're going to have. Usually when people complain to me that they aren't getting a response, when I look at their messages, it falls under the category of what I call the brain drain, right? So it's just taking too much energy for people and too much thought power to respond to that message. So it's either too long, it's got too many questions in it, it's too focused on the person who's sending it, there's not enough interest in the person that you're trying to interact with. I actually quite like closed questions, or what I call this or that questions, right? Because it's just really easy for somebody to respond. Do you prefer cats or dogs? Cats, super easy. Not, out of all the cats you've ever seen, which one has been your favorite breed? It's like, don't make me think so hard. Just start a conversation and, let's just chat. So hopefully, I know I didn't cover everything. I just wanted to give you a little bit behind the scenes because the future video won't be coming out for a while. I'll be going into more detail, so keep your eye on it. If you don't follow the future YouTube channel, go over there and follow them. Chris Do does an incredible job with that channel. He puts out some incredible content. So go and check it out. We put a video on there every month, sometimes a couple of videos a month. So I will be putting this video out where I'll kind of be breaking these things down in a little bit more detail. I'll also be creating a guide or a bit of a cheat sheet for LinkedIn DMs if you find that valuable. As always, if you've got any questions on this, the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. So follow me on there, comment on my content, drop me a message if you've got a specific question about this. But yeah, connect with me. Don't be shy. I love getting messages from listeners. It's really nice when people compliment what I'm doing with the podcast and how much value they're getting from it. So please connect with me. And as always, if you found this episode particularly useful or insightful, if there were some nuggets in here, send it to a friend and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, you're listening to the Creative Courage Podcast. My name is Matt Essam. I'll see you soon. Before you leave, if you found this episode valuable, please hit the subscribe button. Also, if you are a creative business owner doing more than 10K a month and you want to grow and scale without working longer hours or hiring a massive team, then I have something you may be interested in. We have just developed a tool that will give you a custom growth strategy based on exactly where you are in your business right now. So you can stop consuming lots of random content and trying to figure things out on your own and actually get something personalized to you. You will also receive a free copy of my book and it will point out relevant chapters. If you'd like to take the scorecard, it's totally free. You just have to click the link in the show notes or connect with me on LinkedIn and you will see a link in my bio. Thanks for listening. This is the Creative Courage Podcast.